Hello and welcome to the Exiles podcast. This is a podcast we talk all things Newport County, and today this is our 5th episode. I am your host, Harrison Kidd, and I was also joined by...
I'm Owen Gardner.
I'm Garen Scapins.
I'm Luke Hawkins.
Lovely stuff. So we'll start off with yesterday's game, Tuesday night. Newport played Salford. They drew 1-1 away. First of all, Owen, was that a good point for Newport, away from home?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that it was a good point. I saw a lot of Newport fans on Twitter arguing that, it's 4 points in their last two would have been ideal. And even though they were disappointed against Leyton Orient, I think they managed to get that point in the end in a good fashion. They were losing for a large chunk of the game. And obviously penalty last minute, having saved a pen as well at one point. And Salford in their recent running games have proved quite hard to beat. They're a bit of a well-organised sort of side. So I think they'll be happy with that point on the road, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, as you said, 92nd minute penalty, Josh Sheehan. Nick Townsend playing well for Newport, saved the pen, made 9 saves. Luke, obviously we all know how good he was, but do you want to explain how good he actually was for Newport last night?
Yeah, it was a top quality performance from the keeper. The highlight being the penalty save. He's becoming quite a reliable goalkeeper for them. He's taken the starting spot, and yeah, he's just. It was a brilliant performance, and he's arguably saved Newport a point against a tough side in Salford.
Yeah, I agree with that, to be fair, because obviously at the start of the season, no one really knew who was going to start in goal. Obviously, it's a close competition between Nick Townsend and Tom King. I think he did actually probably save Newport from an embarrassing result, really. I mean, making 9 saves, it says it all, really, doesn't it?
Well, the thing with Salford as well is once you concede, they've got the least goals conceded in the league, so they're difficult to break through against. And to get the last-minute penalty as well, Josh Sheehan, that's top performance and a good point.
Do you think that shows, let's go back to all of you boys, do you think that shows the mentality they have this season, that they are actually, scoring late goals? It just shows what they can do, and, they can leave it last minute, but you still have in the back of your mind, they probably will score still.
Yeah, I mean, that's what getting you up in the league does, isn't it? It's those games where you think you're not going to get anything from them, and you still manage to pull something from it at the very least. Then that's when you start building your momentum and your optimism that, like we said in the past episodes, that we think the club will strive on forwards and do well in the league this season.
Yeah, sort of echoing off that, it's like Aaron said, it's a sign of a good team when you can play not poorly, but you can have one of your worst games and you can still salvage something out of it and then build on that. And I think especially in the Football League, every team goes through a bit of a spell because it's such a long season. But I think as long as you can pick up points when you're not playing so well and you're not having your best game, then you can build off that and the games you really do turn up to. And I think that's important for Newport being top of the league at the moment.
Yeah, and Garen, what actually happened yesterday then? You said, this late preparation, they turned up at 6 o'clock. What happened there?
Well, the motorway was not having the best of days and was closed.
Already?
And they missed their the pre-game meal and everything. That had to be, I think it was said in an interview that they had to shop for their food at Morrison's. So, yeah, it wasn't the best of preparation for a game. So if you look at that in hindsight, you could say taking a point is that's enough. They would be happy with that. But if you're just looking at the game in general beforehand without the excuse, then it wouldn't have been ideal. But again, you'd still be happy with taking what you can, especially last minute.
Yeah, exactly. And moving on, not the best news for Newport. There's been speculation that Scott Twine might be going back to Swindon. Obviously, he's been a really big player for Newport this season. He's only 21. He's got 5 goals, 4 assists. So first of all, Garen, how will this actually affect Newport, do you think?
Well, it won't. Obviously, if he's playing great football at the moment, then it won't be the best thing for them. But at the same time, annoyingly, you have to look at it from the parent club's point of view, don't you? It's when Swindon are in the relegation zone at the moment in League One, they're not playing their best, and if they've got someone on the books who is playing good outside of their club at the moment, for themselves, they'd probably it's a no-brainer to bring him back. Hopefully, it doesn't happen, and hopefully, he continues to play in the best form that he possibly can for Newport. But there's a big question mark over what's going to happen in the future. That's for sure.
I think I have heard that Swindon are having their injury problems. So, I mean, what would be best for him? What do you think going? Obviously, would it be best for him to go back to Swindon? Maybe he could start. I don't know, with the injury problems they have. What do you think is best for him staying at Newport for the season?
I think he'll definitely get a place. Like Aaron said, given the situation Swindon are in, and the injuries they've got, and obviously he's shown his quality with Newport without the types of goals he scored and like his general play. But it's a bit biased to say that he should stay in Newport for the rest of the season, sort of see it out, because I know those Newport fans are going to want to be in the stands for him to score another one of them goals. But obviously it's up to the parent club at the end of the day, and I think they would need him. So if he did go back, I don't think he'd be surplus to requirements or anything. I think he'd be brought back for a reason if that happened.
Yeah, I've seen on Twitter, to be fair, that a load of Newport County fans, obviously no fans in the stadium this season. Well, so far, they obviously do want to see him play because I think he has actually been one of the most exciting players they've had over recent years. And obviously, like I said before, he has played a big part in Newport this season. If he does go, how do you think, Luke, the system will change? Do you think it will change? Do you think they'll bring anyone else in? Will it be internally?
It's a difficult one because he has been such a creative player. He's good on set pieces, and he is in such a crucial role, being that sort of number 10 / attacking midfielder. They got Jamie Devitt, who can also play in that role, but would he be able to produce the same output as Scott Twine? There's also, Josh Sheehan's quite creative, but do they change his position? I don't think so. I think they'd have to look at somebody in the transfer window. And I think they'll be happy with the way the system has been going for them so far in the season. They probably won't want to change that. So I think they would have to look at a transfer.
Yeah, I think it will be a huge loss if he does go. But personally, I think I think he should stay at Newport for a season. Obviously, that's me being maybe a little bit being biased, like Owen said, but he's getting a good run of games. He's played most games. He's got 5 goals and 4 assists, in 17 games. That is good for League Two. I just don't see why. Well, I can see why he would go to Swindon, obviously with his injury problems. But then it does. It's the same with Semenyo a few seasons ago. He went back to Bristol and he didn't get the game time that he was getting at Newport, and he was flying at Newport. So obviously, it's just got to think what's best for him. And obviously, for Newport, will the system change? Will they look elsewhere?
You got to think as well, Scott Twine's sort of becoming, I think you could tell he's becoming a bit of a fan favourite with what he's done so far. And maybe he wants to stick it out for the rest of the year. We don't know. But yeah, I think it's definitely one of those for him to consider. Obviously, he doesn't really have control over it per se. But, whether it's best for him, I think there's those two ways you can look at it, really.
Yeah, so, this is quite to all of you. Do you think he'd rather stay in Newport, or do you reckon he'd want to go back to Swindon? Obviously, we don't know, but
I personally think he'd rather just stick it out at Newport, because it's not as if he's going to be there for years. Maybe he's helping the club in this, promotion run. And I think, well, if I were, I'm not saying I'll ever be in that position, but if I were in that position, and if I was a lone player, you sort of build relationships at the club you're at, and especially if you're doing this well and you're getting this amount of game time and you're connecting with the fans online as well as he is. I personally don't see why he'd want to move, even though maybe he feels responsibility to help out his parent club in the struggles that they're in. I personally, I don't see why he'd want to move though, but obviously if Swindon want him to, then that's what'll happen.
The only thing I could think of is that if he didn't go to Swindon and Swindon do end up going down, and he is the one who helps Newport go up, and then he finishes his loan, and then he's back in League Two when Newport are now moved up. So I think there'd be one thing he'd want to help Swindon stay up just for that if he could. But other than that, yeah, I fully agree with Owen. I think you'd rather stick it out. That would be the only thing on your mind about going back to Swindon or not.
I think as a player, he'd rather be involved in the promotion of Newport than the fighting against relegation for Swindon. But Swindon obviously want him back, so I don't know what role he has.
Yeah, hopefully, he is, like you said, he is becoming a fan favourite. Hopefully he can stick that out and stay and hope. Well, hopefully get Newport promotion. Moving on, we're going to carry on with this weekly segment. It's called the Exiles on Twitter. This is where we find some of the fans' tweets and interact with them, give our opinions on them. I'll go first. This is a tweet from the Exiles analysis man, and he's given his opinion on the system change. Well, a potential system change anyway. He says, next time Newport play a team, we know play a 4-2-3-1. Let's play a 4 at the back. Thanks. As well, I'll put it out to you boys. What do you think about that? Obviously, many teams in the league do play a 4-2-3-1. Newport been predominantly playing a 5 at the back this season. It has been going well. But do you think a system change for Newport can, I don't know, help them, or do you think you should keep the 5 at the back?
I think with right now, you're top of the league, so it clearly works having 5 at the back, and it's clearly a system that at least the majority are happy with. I mean, if some certain things happen and you get some injuries and things like that, then fair enough, you might need to, but it is working, so I wouldn't see why there's no need for a desperate change. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, like you said that. Well, like you said about the injuries. Obviously, going back to the point on Scott Twine, this could be a solution if Scott Twine does leave. I mean, like Luke said, we could push Josh Ian forward, but would you want to push Josh Ian forward because he is good at getting the ball from deep? It is a option. I know Newport have changed the system if they're losing to go to a 4 at the back and then go 4-2-3-1.
I just think with the formation change, they got so used to playing 5 at the back, but they do change the system during the game with adding an extra defender or like an extra defensive midfielder or adding an extra striker and everything like that. So they got the adaptability to change formation, but they are still top and they grind out results against tough opposition all the time. So I don't think they'd want to change it.
I understand what Garen's saying in terms of if you're top of the league, you don't want to change it, or too much at least. But I think, especially with this Scott Twine business now, if he goes, it's definitely something they got to think about, especially if they feel that there's not a player at the club that can fulfill his role that he had to the same standard that he did it. And especially if they think they can't bring anyone in. And I think as well, you've got to have, even though they do seem to change their system in mid-game, it is important that teams don't get too one-dimensional. Because if it's a long old season, teams start to figure you out in that league. It can be costly, and you've seen teams drop off before where they've had good starts, like in all the football, Championship, League One, and all that. You've seen teams drop off because of their system and their sort of unwillingness to change and adapt to what's happening to them. So I think even though they shouldn't worry too much, they shouldn't jump the shark in terms of changing the system, but it's definitely something that they need to keep in mind.
Garen, do you want to see your tweet?
Yeah, got a tweet here from Jaden Dwyer, who was commenting on after they said "Good night, Exiles" that Newport tweeted for being top of the league. and then he replied with we had 20 shots and only scored 1. And that is an interesting topic because no one has spoken about it since the game. Because everyone's all like, "Oh, Nick Townsend put in a great performance, made a lot of saves. There's the preparation issues, and then also the fact that they came back in the last minute, and it was scored by a penalty." But having 20 shots, probably you should be having the opponent should be having a worse time of it rather than just sitting comfortably 1-0 up, shouldn't they?
Yeah, well, obviously, if someone didn't watch the game and they look on Twitter, they would see obviously the massive praise for Nick Townsend, which obviously, like, he does deserve, which he did have a really good performance, but like you said then, 20 shots, it seems that it wasn't just one-sided, the game.
Yeah.
And obviously, Abrams and Amon started. They came off after 63 minutes, and then Edison and Collins came on. But you think with Amon and Abrams at front, I mean, Amon's been their top scorer for the last few seasons. Abrams, he's been on fire this season. You think with 20 shots, did he score more than one? I mean, more than one. There was last minute as well as a penalty.
Yeah.
You know, they probably could have got more out of that game by being a bit more clinical. Owen, do you want to have a go? Well, say your tweet.
Yeah, so my tweet even comes from Richard M. Black, and it was a reply to the tweet the Newport County official Twitter account put up, saying Nick Townsend, full stop. That was just a tweet. And Richard replied to it saying, "Used to think he wasn't tall enough and looked a bit chunky. No idea what his gym routine is, but the fellow has a great spring in his step and looks a completely different quality now. Fantastic progress from a player over the course of the year." And I thought that was quite interesting because it started off like a bit of a backhanded compliment, saying he was out of shape and stuff. He didn't know, what his quality was. But it's like you said, even though maybe the game wasn't as one-sided as the highlights suggest, and the last-minute equaliser suggests. But even then, that shows the praise that Nick Townsend's getting, and not just for that performance, but how far he's come in his progression in the team and sort of how he's managed to establish himself as starting goalie.
Yeah, obviously the start of the season, like I said before, him and Tom King were battling for the starting position, and I think at the moment, that is his to lose. Obviously, he has been playing most of the season, and especially a performance like that, I can't see Tom King coming in at any time soon to replace him. I mean, unless he gets injured.
Yeah, it's a statement to make. To be fair, that's a performance like that really does he's laid down the marker now, and he's gone, right, if you want to start ahead of me, you've got to be doing this and more in training and when you get your chances. And it looks like the other goalies are not going to be given a chance now with him putting in performances like that.
Yeah, I think that is a good point as well. I think training for him and Tom King will be massive. Well, maybe not Townsend at the moment because of his recent performance. So Tom King, if he wants to step up and become number one keeper, then he'll have to, training will be massive for him. And, it is good competition. It's healthy for Newport.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Luke, you got a tweet? Do you want
I got a tweet from Cymru Ollie, who says, change Abrahams for Proctor. Feel like Tristan needs time away from a match day. Also get Dolan on the bench. He's fine apparently. Just came off last night as a precaution. Tweaked his hip. So that's in relation to the starting lineup against Oldham, what he thinks it should be. I do think I don't know. I've grown to like Tristan Abrams as a player. I think you can't be too harsh on him for not scoring against a tough side in Salford. But I think he showed creativity earlier on in the game as well. So I'm not sure about changing him. And then also his opinion on Dolan's injury as well. I'm not sure if he can contribute or not, but we'll see, won't we?
I think it does as well. I think obviously Proctor and Abrams are complete different strikers. I think it does matter on who they're playing. Obviously they got Oldham next, but I don't know. As in, Abrams is getting behind striker, although he can come deep and he is good with the ball. But him and Proctor, I think, are just different strikers.
Yeah.
And I think with Dolan as well, obviously he might have come off with a precaution. I know we've spoken about this a lot, but this could mean a system change. I don't know whether this means, well, it's just literally just mean Bennett comes in, and which is probably likely to happen. Bennett will come in centre half if Dolan's not fit to play, or it could mean, like the Exiles analysis man said, this could mean a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, there's potential for change there, but I do think that, as you said, the strikers are different, and I think Abrahams has that bit of creativity, and he has a bit more legs than Proctor.
Yeah, and obviously with Oldham now, they're 16th in the league. They've won 7, drawn twice, and lost 9 times. I'll put this out to all of you. How do you think the game will go against Oldham?
I think it's going to be quite well. It's weird because if you look at Oldham and Newport's record, they've scored the same amount of goals in the league this year.
Really?
But Oldham, to put it nicely, they're quite erratic defensively. So it's one of them where it could be quite an open game where, especially after maybe you could say I suppose it was cagey affair against Salford. I mean, they had their chances, but it seemed like until the last minute nothing was going right for them. But I think Oldham could be a different story, and they're just coming back from a 3-2 loss to Walsall at home as well. I think it'll be a very open game, but it just depends on if it's definitely Newport's for the taking, but it just depends if they can capitalise on Oldham's leaky defence, to put it lightly.
Yeah, like you've said, that it could mean a change in strikers. Obviously, Abrams and Amon came off against Salford with half hour to go. This could mean a few changes. Proctor could come in, Edison could come in, Collins is back now. He could come in. So they have options, and that is good for Newport.
I agree pretty much. I think after the last couple of performances, it'll be a slow start. It won't be a quick one, just because they just want to get a foothold into the game rather than just go about it like nothing's happened over the last few weeks. They haven't got 1 point from the last 2. And again, we've seen the 20 shots and 1 goal in the last game, and that was the last minute penalty. So I think it would be a relatively slow game, and they'll build their way into it. But again, like Owen said, it should be someone that they should be comfortably winning in the end.
And last of all, obviously, Newport's form at the moment, they are still top of the table. So, I mean, we won't go too much into it, but the last 5 games, they have won twice, drawn twice, and lost once. They're still top of the table, like I said, 18 games, 11 wins, 4 draws, and 3 losses. Do you think this form? Well, first of all, do you think the form is good enough to carry on where they are? If not, do you think this is just a blip, or I'll put it out to all of you?
Go on, Luke.
I honestly think it's a blip, and they've come across some challenges that some of the more difficult challenges in the league. Like, as I said, Salford's defence is extremely good. And I honestly think they will kick on. But obviously, if they don't kick on from this, it could be a changing point. But I think that with a few more games played, we'll look back on some of these results and think actually they were decent points.
I sort of echoing what Luke said, really. I think it is a blip because even though, like I said, the Leyton Orient result wasn't too pleasing, you can either look at it as in their last 5 games, they've only lost once, or in their last 5 games, they've only won 2. I've said it before, but in the Football League, it's hard to, I think we've been so accustomed to teams like Man City and Liverpool in the Prem just walk in the league and dropping like a couple of points all season. And in the Football League, it's just completely different. Like every team goes through some sort of spell or patch. And I don't even think this is necessarily, if this is their bad patch all season, I think they'll fly the league, to be honest, because, only really losing 1 in 5 is not a bad return, considering people are talking about, is this the end of Newport County's, like honeymoon period in the, this season kind of thing. So I think this is a blip, to be fair, and but they really do need to push on now, because Carlisle are right behind them as well, and they're not going to let up. So I really think this is Newport's chance to sort of take charge.
Yeah, I'd fully agree with that. I think you'd look at, again, like the Christmas period just always is a tougher period of the season. So I'd say just get through to mid-January, see where you are then, and then you can push on from there then pretty much. It's just, I don't think, like Lauren said again, it's not the Prem with Liverpool City. The points will be dropped. It's just about maintaining that over the holiday period, looking at where you are after all of that, and then realising that they probably still will be in a very good position to push on. And then, who knows, just all in their own hands then.
Yeah, and obviously that one of those draws was against Salford, which is last game. I think Carlisle were the only one to actually pick up points in the top 7 before that game. It was only Newport and Carlisle to actually pick up points. So, I mean, if you look back at it, one of those draws is probably a good draw. I think we spoke about it all. But thank you for listening. If you got this far, we're going to continue this weekly. Cheers for listening, and see you next week.